Coming up next, we're going to talk about finishing the race. The most important time in your race is October of the election year. And it's the time, it's the time when the awareness is raised. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be out working all summer, knocking on doors, raising money, holding events, going to summer festivals, but you should be doing that, but you really have to ramp it up in October. And so October is sort of a different animal because of that intensity. And so we have asked our 2nd District Central Committee Representative Ryan Liedtky, that's up north for those of you who aren't from the region. We've asked Ryan Liedtky to present on the finishing the race strong, because Ryan has a ton of energy. He ran a great House campaign, and he's going to give you a great presentation on finishing strong. So if you would, please welcome Ryan Liedtky.
Thanks everybody for having me here today. It's great to be here. Now, you should have already reached your voters by this time, because now you're at the end of the campaign. You're down to the final month before Election Day. If you haven't reached your voters by now, none of this is really going to matter too much, because you're kind of already doomed. So you need to be doing everything you've been taught today all the way up to this point. I would actually recommend that 3 to 4 weeks before Election Day, you take maybe a 4-day weekend and just take a vacation, just relax, rejuvenate, just get yourself prepared for that closing stretch. You want to have energy going into there. You don't want to be going into there worn out, exhausted, and just not feeling up to it. You should have volunteers who can still do some work for you during that 4 days that you're taking off. All right, so especially if you have a spouse, that's a good chance to get away with your spouse and maybe go to a hotel or something. Just get away from it all and reward your spouse for being so kind to you too. That's very important, because you want to stay fresh, and staying fresh physically, emotionally, and in the voter's mind as well. So you really want to keep in front of the voters, and you want to keep with a fresh message. You don't want to wear yourself out. You don't want to say the same thing over and over and over and get to the end of the campaign and have nothing new to say. The voters are going to get tired of it too. All right, so just like you can get worn out, the voters can get a little worn out too. Make sure that your message is always fresh, up to date, appealing, and that it's striking. It's always new. Not necessarily a new message, but you're not saying the same exact thing over and over and over. Keep your message clear and concise. You remember, at the end of the campaign, you should have already made the case for why you should be elected. So now you just want to kind of say, hey, I'm still here. This is why you need to vote for me. Don't go into anything long and drawn out. It's been a long election cycle by now. The voters are starting to get tired. Keep it nice, clear, and concise, something they can understand, something catchy. If you can come up with a catchphrase, there's nothing wrong with that. You keep your message about you. Don't get negative. You can defend yourself, but during the last month or so, especially if you start polling well, your opponents may start coming after you a little bit harder. And it's probably not a good idea to go negative on them. It's a good idea to keep the message about you, what your solutions are. And this is another thing, is have solutions to the problems. There's going to be issues, have solutions. That's one thing I haven't heard today. I think is really important. You can't just stand up there and say, well, we need smaller government. There are specific issues the voters are going to be looking at, and you need to have specific solutions for why smaller government is the best in that given situation. Something that's going to resonate with them, something that's going to sell. Right? I think Tim said it, you are a salesman basically as a candidate. And not all of this stuff comes down to the candidate either. A lot of the stuff the campaign team has to keep working on as well. So it's not all strictly on the candidate, but the candidate is the salesperson. At the end of the campaign, you're going to want to do a big final media and advertising push. And all the speakers today actually have kind of hit on everything I really wanted to say. But I'm just going to kind of sum it up real quick here with the advertising and the media push. They're kind of lumped together. And what I mean by that is, at this point, there are deadlines that you're gonna have to meet for your press release, for your advertising. Contact all the media sources, find out what those deadlines are. Some media sources may have a deadline, they won't accept press releases after 7 days before election day. Make sure you find that out for each individual one and get that press release out to them before that deadline. Same with the advertisements. Find out those deadlines and get that advertisement out to them on the deadline. Make sure with the advertisements that you've set a very strict budget. You don't want to go over, because if you go over, you can end up owing your campaign money, and you don't have the resources to repay it. So make sure you set a strict budget on how much you're willing to advertise. And as Tim said just a little bit ago, focus on what your campaign is, because you're going to have to target your limited advertising dollars into an advertising buy that makes sense. You're not going to be buying TV slots for a school board member, probably. All right, that wouldn't make much sense if you're in an area where the TV gets, 200 miles wide. You're going to try to find a way to target that a little bit more specific. With your press release, you want to make sure that you get that out in a timely manner before the deadline, but as close to the deadline as possible. Again, staying fresh, right? Staying fresh. You don't want to get that final press release out 2 weeks before election day and have all of your opponents get theirs out exactly 1 week before election day. Who's freshest in the voter's mind then? It's not going to be you. So you want to be as fresh in that voter's mind as possible with your message. In your final press release, you want to make sure that you capture the essence of your campaign. You shouldn't be selling specific policy issues at this point. This is basically a summary, all right? So wrap it up. Wrap up what your campaign is. And again, this should be, hopefully you should have somebody who is able to help you with this, especially if you aren't a good writer, or find somebody to help you with this. Keep it concise. Again, short message, to the point. Make sure that it's clear though. Make sure there's nothing confusing, nothing that's nothing that can be taken out of context. That final week, you really want to make the best effort to really get into their minds, because the voters at this point are really looking for the candidates, especially the moderates and the independents who haven't made up a choice. You've always got those who say, "Oh, I'm Republican. I'll go in. I'll pull the Republican." Or "I'm a Democrat. I'll go in and pull the Democrat." So at this point, you're probably not going to be able to reach them. Earlier in the campaign, you might be able to. At this point, it's probably too late. Well, at this point, I'm talking the final 2 weeks. So you want to make sure that your message is something that's going to be clear, concise, and easy for independents to look at it and say, "I like this guy. I could go in there and push the button next to this guy's name." That's what you're trying to do here, is you're trying to sell yourself in a last-ditch effort. With your media buys, you also want to make sure that your advertisement, especially if you're doing a newspaper advertisement, you want to make sure it's big enough that people can read it, but you want it clear and legible. All right? You don't want to put too much into it. People won't be able to see it in the newspaper print. So you want to consider that. And it might be worth using some of your money to hire a guy to make a good ad for you. There are people who make ads. And from business experience myself, I think you can probably get an ad done for between $50 and $75. It looks very, very good, very nice, with excellent graphics. That's not going to be too bad. You can even put your face in there or whatever you want. And people will be able to look at it, and it's going to be nice, not too flashy, but something that's going to be able to sell at the same time. And ask for their political packages. And I say that because a lot of times what you'll find is that they will have different price packages for politicians as opposed to businesses. So make sure when you contact them about how much it costs to run an ad, you specifically tell them exactly what you're looking to run the ad for. And that may get you a reduced price, or You know, it may even help get you into the newspaper with your press releases too, especially if you're doing a newspaper or TV, radio, whatever you're trying to do. Remember, the media are businesses. All right, a lot of us like to rail on the mainstream media and how liberal they are, but do remember they are businesses as well. They're trying to make a profit, and if they know that you're going to turn around and give them money, it's highly likely they're going to turn around and do you a favor as well to make sure that you do place that advertisement with them. So don't be afraid to take advantage of that.